have a video where I showed off and flipped through some of the books that are available for loan for my students in my Making Comics and Zines class. This is a follow-up video, an additional video. This is for my Making Comics students. They are free to borrow any of the books that were shown in my Making Comics and Zines book video. These are just kind of additional books I've acquired or books that I want them to pay special attention to during our class time. Now I have a really big collection of art books, art resources, how-to books, manga, zines, comics, etc. So if there's something you're interested in that you don't see here or that I haven't bring to class, let me know. I probably have it, and I'd be happy to bring it in for you. So we're gonna start with Jack Ham's Drawing the Head and Figure. And usually I highly recommend the Glenn Vilppu Drawing Manual, which I have, and Andrew Loomis's Figure Drawing for All It's Worth, which I also have. This is a wonderful addition to that. It does teach some basic figure drawing, but what I think is more exciting about this book is it kind of simplifies things, so it's more along the lines of good kind of tips. Actually, I'm going to clean off my table so you guys can see these books better. So it's great if you already kind of have a basic understanding of figure construction, how you want to construct your figure. It's all just different sort of tips and methods for drawing, methods for breaking down the face. And I believe I first found out about this book from Jeremy's YouTube channel. So he's got, I think, at least a couple videos of great drawing references, great drawing books. So you should also check out his recommendations. This is also great because there's loads of different ways of stylizing. And then how to draw things from different angles, which is something I know many of us struggle with. And I believe Jack Ham not only did illustration, but also did comics. So that kind of puts him in our camp. And with these sort of art books, what I really recommend you do is I really recommend you copy the exercises, you take notes, and then you find a reference photo and you try to recreate what you learned in here using the reference photo. And I need to work my way through this amazing book as well. He does talk about constructive figure drawings, but not necessarily in detail, which is why I still recommend you guys read the Glenn Vilppu Drawing Manual. And this is an artist reference, so, you know, there is naked, nude human anatomy in it. But it's presented in a very clinical, educational sort of way. So it's a wonderful reference, fantastic hand drawings. Loads of notes, loads of ways to draw feet and to draw folds. So I'm excited about working my way through this book as well. He also has a Cartooning the Head and Figure, which I am excited to get a hold of. On that same sort of note, we have How to Think When You Draw, and I'm going to back the second Kickstarter as well. And it's really just a collection of drawing tips, sort of in the same vein as Grizz and Norm. And I missed out on backing their campaign, so. And this is much more cartoony, much more aimed towards comics. So I think this, with the Jack Ham book, is a great way to kind of understand things. Now, they never really go into a lot of detail. Like, we have horse heads, but not necessarily too much on horse bodies. I mean, they call this the Horse's Expansion Pack. So what I would do is I would use this as sort of like a way to refine your craft. Like, if you already have books on horses, this is a great way to learn more about cartooning horses, for example. But I wouldn't get this as like a standalone. But there's loads of great stuff. Unfortunately, if you aren't buying it through a Kickstarter, it can be a little hard to get a hold of, but they have their second Kickstarter coming up, and they share amazing tips and tutorials, not just theirs, but other artists. I think at the Etherington Brothers on Twitter, and I can drop a link in the description below. Here we have the Triple I Academy by Elisa Caves and Chihiro Howe, and this is put out by Copic Imagine International. And this is neat because it's, of course, it's super duper cute. It's in color, and it is a manga. So it is all about making comics in a comic format. And it's beautifully drawn. And it explains things fairly simply, so this could be a good beginner book. And the color illustrations were done with Copic markers, so they talk a lot about Copic since it is put out by Imagine International, who puts out Copic. But I think there's a lot of nice information in here that isn't necessarily covered in other books. I also have a couple of the older Ben Caldwell sketchbooks. These are for Dare Detectives, and what's neat about this is it's a lot of rough process, a lot of sketching, which can be super inspirational. I love being able to show students in my classes sketchbooks from other artists so they can see how other people think and they can see how other people draw. You can learn so much by looking at other people's process sketches, and this is nice here because we have design, we have the layout, and then we have the composition. So that kind of process really opens things up for other artists. So here I have sketchbook 15, and which one are you? This also says 11? Okay, yeah, so 11 and 15, that makes sense. And these are from 2011, so a little bit older. I also have Ink Studs interviews with cartoonists. I think getting into other artists' heads is always important and exciting. I used to do interviews for Sequel Lab a million years ago. I really loved it. Joseph does interviews with artists at conventions, and you guys can check out that playlist here. I highly recommend it, especially if you're interested in tabling at shows. So knowing how other artists think, learning about their experiences, hearing about their process, it's all great information. Always interested in getting in the head of other artists. So this is Ink Studs by Robin McConnell. And these were available to borrow last semester, but I'm grabbing them to show this class. We have Drawing Comics Lab, which is kind of like, I would say it's great for kids and teens. It's sort of like a stripped down version of drawing words and writing comics. It's got a lot of different kinds of exercises. Just sort of if you're interested in comics, but you're not really sure how you want to do comics, this can be great for that. We also have Will Eisner, Graphic Storytelling and Visual Narrative. I have two of his other books as well. And I can see them, but I can't read the titles from here. I have the red cover and the tan cover. My students will find out what I'm talking about because I'll bring it. We have Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which, to be frank, never did it for me, but hopefully it will do it for someone. It's always been recommended, and it just never clicked with me. I think because the focus is not on storytelling necessarily. It's really just on like drawing from a reference. I think that's why it never really resonated with me. And then we have Drawn to Life, and I also have Volume 2, which has always resonated with me. I love this book. I have marked this book up. I have dog-eared this book. I have used a million Post-it notes in this book. It is aimed towards animators, but there's so much good stuff for comic people because it's a lot of storytelling. So I can't recommend this book enough. I love this book so much. All right, I think that covers the basics for what I'm going to have. I mean, I have a load of books, and I'm going to bring in stuff based on what I think my students need. So this isn't all of it. In fact, as I was looking at my bookshelf, I noticed a bunch more I want to bring. So this is The Art of the Comic Book and an aesthetic history, almost thought an authentic history. I bought this for my thesis. This is really nice, especially for people who maybe like aren't really into manga, and they're not really into modern comics. This kind of shows what works for older comics. So there's a lot of Will Eisner kind of stuff in here, a lot of older Mad Magazine stuff. And it talks about how comics sort of became the art form they are now. That's why it's an aesthetic history. It talks about how things developed. I also have this old chestnut, which is always recommended, Understanding Comics, the Invisible Art. And this is great because it explains comics as a format. So for artists who have never drawn comics, I highly recommend this. It's more than just drawing illustrations. And honestly, it is probably time for me to reread all of these. But I love being able to share them with my students as well. Then I decided, since I love Drawn to Life so much, maybe I should pull out the Animator Survival Kit, because a lot of the principles that work for animation work for comics. We're just not doing so much in betweening. So being able to capture gestures like this can make for really engaging comics. Like Slam Dunk uses a lot of that sort of in-your-face action to make you feel the story. There's also a lot of information about pacing, which, I mean, you have to kind of know how to apply it, but it can be applied to comics as well. So that is the Animator Survival Kit. And you can tell this is much loved. We have drawing words and writing pictures and mastering comics. And I've kind of pulled my notes from my thesis out of some of these books. I don't know if I need these anymore. Although some of them are really good, like all elements should serve the story. Anything that detracts, distracts. Lose the reader equals instant fail. Layout is a way we can differentiate ourselves from filmmakers. We can change. Maybe some of these are worth keeping. Of course, then my students will lose them. Get rid of these though. Anyway, these were thesis notes. And then I also have the sequel, Mastering Comics, which is more about kind of refining the craft. So this is like an introduction to the craft in different styles. And then this is really about refining what you already do. So I have a lot more books I can bring in, but I am one woman, and although Joseph's gonna help me haul stuff, I still have to pick all this stuff up. So if there's something you're interested in borrowing and you're in my Making Comics class, unfortunately I cannot extend that offer to anyone else, please let me know, like, hey Becca, I'm looking for more stuff on drawing expressions, I'm having trouble with that. Or hey Becca, I need more stuff on human anatomy, can you help me with that? Or hey Becca, I really love shonen manga and I want to draw like that. Do you have anything that can inspire me or help me get better at doing that? Or I really love shoujo manga, or I really love watercolor, anything like that. I have, and even some stuff you guys wouldn't think I would have because my stuff is very cutesy wootsy. I have a lot of stuff on like noir comics and just other types of comics. So ask, I probably have it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you. I look forward to meeting you in person. And I hope I've got a book or two or three to suit your needs. So before I let you go, I do have a book borrowing policy. And that is, when you borrow a book from me, you need to write your name and your email address, as well as the name of the book you're borrowing and a book that I'm going to have. When you return the book, we're going to scratch it out. This is to prevent my books from walking. I don't borrow books from other people because I have a bad habit of not returning them. But I am cool with letting other people borrow my books, but I've also lost a lot. I say lost. People have never returned a lot of books that I've loaned them. So I would like to get these back so I can continue enjoying them myself and loaning them to other artists. I have checked our Nashville Public Library. They have some books, but not as many books as I have. So if you love something, I would definitely recommend you fill out a request form with the Nashville Public Library and ask them to acquire the book. You're doing yourself a favor and you're helping loads of other artists who you haven't even met. So thank you guys for watching. I look forward to meeting you in the near future, and I hope you will consider subscribing to my channel because I have a lot of really great comic stuff here, a lot of good art stuff, and I love to help people. I also have a Friday night power hour stream where I do drawing demonstrations, I do art supply demonstrations, and I take character requests. So if there's ever something that we didn't cover in class that you want to learn more about, let me know either before power hour so I can prep it for you, or let me know during power hour. So I will see you guys really soon. Bye, guys.